The gunfire started at noon. 3 SUVs, no plates, rolling into the gravel lot outside the border clinic like they owned it. Inside, the waiting room went silent. Mothers grabbed their children. The volunteer staff froze. Everyone heard the doors slam, the voices shouting in Spanish, the metallic snap of weapons being racked. The volunteer nurse, a woman in her early 30s with tired eyes and faded scrubs, stood at the intake desk, a clipboard in her hands. She didn't run. She didn't scream. She just looked at the door, tilted her head slightly, and set the clipboard down. Her name was Carson, and she'd been waiting for something like this her entire life. Carson had been at the border clinic for 6 weeks, and no one knew her last name. She worked intake, triage, and cleanup, whatever needed doing. The clinic sat 15 miles north of the Rio Grande, a single-story concrete building with barred windows and a gravel parking lot that turned to mud when it rained. It served migrants, refugees, and locals who couldn't afford anything better. The waiting room was always full. The supplies were always running low. The staff was always exhausted. Carson fit right in. She was quiet, efficient, forgettable. She wore the same faded blue scrubs every shift, her dark hair pulled back in a bun, her face blank and unremarkable. She didn't eat lunch with the other volunteers. She didn't talk about where she came from or why she was there. When people asked, she gave one-word answers and changed the subject. The clinic director, a woman named Dr. Alvarez, 50-something, with gray streaks in her hair and permanent circles under her eyes, barely remembered hiring her. Carson had just shown up one morning with a resume, a nursing certificate, and a willingness to work for free. Alvarez had been too desperate to ask questions. The other volunteers assumed Carson was former MT, maybe burnt out, maybe running from something. No one pushed. Everyone at the clinic was running from something. Carson worked the intake desk most days. She checked vitals, logged symptoms, directed patients to the right rooms. She was fast, precise. She never forgot a face or a chart number. She never panicked, even when the waiting room overflowed and people were bleeding onto the floor. But she didn't stand out. She was just another pair of hands until the deputy came in. It was late afternoon, 3 weeks into her time at the clinic. A sheriff's deputy stumbled through the door, one hand pressed against his side, blood seeping between his fingers. He was young, mid-20s, crew cut, still in uniform. His partner helped him to a chair. "Knife fight," the partner said. "Domestic dispute." Guy came at him. Carson moved without hesitation. She guided the deputy into an exam room, cut away his shirt, and inspected the wound. It was deep, 4 inches long, just below the ribs. "Not life-threatening, but close. You need a hospital," she said. "Nearest one's an hour away." The deputy muttered. "Just patch me up." Carson didn't argue. She prepped the wound, irrigated it, and started stitching. Her hands moved in smooth, mechanical strokes. No hesitation, no wasted motion. The deputy watched her work. He'd been stitched up before, in field hospitals overseas. He recognized the rhythm. "You military?" He asked. Carson didn't look up. "No. You move like it. I don't." He didn't push. But he kept watching. When she finished, she wrapped the wound, gave him antibiotics, and told him to follow up in 3 days. He thanked her. She nodded and walked away. The deputy sat there for a moment, staring at the stitches. They were perfect. Too perfect. The kind of work you learned under fire, when every second mattered. He didn't ask again. But he didn't forget. Either. Carson went back to the intake desk. She logged the deputy's chart, restocked the trauma kit, and kept working. No one noticed. No one asked. She was invisible again. That was how she wanted it. The SUVs came at noon on a Tuesday when the waiting room was packed and the heat was suffocating. Carson was at the intake desk, sorting through a stack of patient files. The clinic was loud, children crying, people coughing, the hum of the overworked air conditioner struggling to keep up. Dr. Alvarez was in the back, stitching up a migrant who'd caught his hand on barbed wire. 2 other volunteers, a nursing student named Maria and a retired medic named Holt, were managing triage. Then the engines cut through the noise. 3 black SUVs rolling into the gravel lot fast, dust kicking up behind them. They parked at angles, blocking the entrance. The waiting room went quiet. Carson looked up. She set the files down slowly, her eyes tracking the vehicles. No plates. Tinted windows. The kind of SUVs that didn't belong at a clinic. The doors opened. 6 men stepped out, all armed. Pistols tucked into waistbands, rifles slung across chests. They wore street clothes, jeans, work boots, baseball caps, but they moved with purpose. Discipline. They weren't amateurs. One of them kicked open the clinic door. Nobody move, he said in Spanish. Then in English, louder, nobody fucking move. The waiting room erupted. Mothers screamed, grabbing their children. An older man tried to stand and was shoved back into his chair. Maria froze at the triage station, hands up, eyes wide. Holt took a step forward, and one of the men swung a rifle toward him. Sit down, old man. Holt sat. The lead enforcer, tall, maybe 30, with a scar running down his left cheek, stepped into the center of the room. He scanned the faces, methodical, looking for something. We're looking for a patient, he said. Came in 2 days ago. Gunshot wound, teenage kid. Brown jacket. Anyone seen him? Silence. The enforcer's jaw tightened. I'm not asking twice. Dr. Alvarez came out of the back, hands raised. I'm the director. We don't give out patient information. It's policy. The enforcer looked at her. Then he walked over, slow and deliberate, and pressed the barrel of his pistol against her forehead. Policy just changed. Alvarez's breath hitched. But she didn't break. I can't help you. The enforcer stared at her for a long moment. Then he pulled the gun back and nodded to his men. Search every room. Find the kid. They spread out. 2 to the back hallway, 2 toward the pediatric bay, 1 staying by the door. The enforcer stayed in the waiting room, gun still in hand, eyes sweeping the crowd. Carson hadn't moved. She was still at the intake desk, hands flat on the counter, watching, observing. Her breathing was slow. Her posture was relaxed. But her eyes were tracking everything. The positions of the enforcers, the exits, the distance between them and the patients. One of the enforcers walked past her toward the pediatric bay. Carson turned her head, just slightly, and watched him go. Then she stood. Sit down, the lead enforcer said, not looking at her. Carson didn't sit. She walked toward the pediatric bay. I said, sit down. She kept walking. Calm, steady, like she hadn't heard him. The enforcer raised his pistol. Lady, I will shoot you. Carson stopped. She turned to face him. Her expression was neutral. Her hands were empty, open at her sides. There are kids in that room, she said quietly. You don't need to scare them. The enforcer stared at her. I don't give a shit, I know, Carson said. But they're already terrified. Let me move them to the back, out of the way. Then you can search wherever you want. The enforcer's eyes narrowed. Who the hell are you, volunteer nurse? You don't sound scared. I'm not. He studied her for a long moment. There was something in her voice, something flat and cold that didn't match the scrubs or the tired eyes. He'd heard that tone before, from men who'd killed people, from men who didn't flinch. Fine, he said. Move the kids. But if I see anything I don't like, I start shooting. Understand? Carson nodded. She turned and walked into the pediatric bay. Inside, 5 children sat on exam tables, wide-eyed and silent. Maria was with them, trembling, trying to keep them calm. Carson moved quickly. She guided the children to a back storage room, one by one, speaking softly, keeping her body between them and the doorway. Maria followed, shaking. "What are we going to do?" Maria whispered. Carson didn't answer. She was counting. 6 enforcers, 3 exits, no law enforcement within 20 miles. The patients couldn't run, too many elderly, too many children. The staff couldn't fight, they weren't trained. But Carson was. She pushed the thought down. She wasn't that person anymore. She'd left that life behind. She closed the storage room door and locked it. Then she turned back toward the waiting room. One of the enforcers was dragging a teenager out of the supply closet. The kid was maybe 16, terrified, hands zip tied behind his back. He'd been hiding. Found him, the enforcer called. The lead enforcer smiled. "Good. Bring him." Carson stepped into the hallway. "Let him go." The enforcer turned, frowning. "What? He's a patient. He stays here." The enforcer laughed. "Lady, you've got balls. I'll give you that. But you need to shut your mouth and sit down." Carson didn't move. "He's a minor. He's under medical care. You take him, and this becomes kidnapping. Federal crime. You want that heat?" The enforcer's smile faded. "You think I care about federal crimes?" "No," Carson said. "But your boss does." The enforcer's eyes flickered. Just for a second. Then he stepped forward, pistol raised, pressing the barrel against Carson's chest. "I'm done talking to you." Carson looked down at the gun, then back up at him. Her voice was calm. "Clinical. You're holding the weapon too tight. Your finger's on the trigger. You're angry. That makes you sloppy." She paused. "If you pull that trigger, you'll kill me. Then your boss loses his witness, and you've got a dead nurse on the floor. Federal agents will crawl all over this place. You'll be in Leavenworth by Friday." The enforcer's jaw clenched. But he didn't fire. Carson took one step forward, closing the distance. Her voice dropped lower. "Or you let the kid go. Walk away. And no one gets hurt." The enforcer stared at her. His hand was shaking now. Not from fear, from rage. Then he lowered the gun outside. He said to his men, "We regroup. Figure out a new plan." The enforcers dragged the teenager toward the door. Carson didn't stop them this time. She just watched as they loaded the kid into one of the SUVs and drove off, dust billowing behind them. The waiting room was silent. Dr. Alvarez was staring at Carson, her face pale. What the hell just happened? Carson didn't answer. She walked back to the intake desk and picked up the files. Maria was shaking. "They're coming back, aren't they?" Carson nodded. "Probably. What do we do?" Carson looked at her. For the first time, something flickered in her eyes. Something cold. "We get ready." The cartel came back 2 hours later. This time, there were more of them. Carson had spent the time quietly. She'd walked the perimeter of the clinic, checking doors, windows, sightlines. She'd moved the most vulnerable patients, elderly, children, pregnant women, into the back rooms. She'd told Maria and Holt to stay with them. She'd asked Dr. Alvarez to lock the drug cabinet and move the narcotics into a safe. Alvarez had stared at her. "Why?" "Because they'll come back for those too," Carson said. "How do you know?" Carson didn't answer. She just kept moving. By the time the SUVs rolled back into the lot, Carson was standing at the front entrance, alone. The waiting room had been cleared. The lights were dimmed. She'd locked the interior doors and left only one path open, straight to her. The enforcers stepped out. 8 this time. The lead enforcer was back, and he was pissed. He stormed through the door, gun drawn, eyes scanning the room. Empty. Just Carson, standing in the center, hands at her sides. "Where is everyone?" he demanded. "Safe," Carson said. "Where's the kid?" Gone. The enforcer's face twisted. Gone where? Border Patrol picked him up an hour ago. Witness protection. He's out of your reach. It was a lie. The kid was still in the clinic, hidden in a locked room. But the enforcer didn't know that. You're lying. Maybe, Carson said. But you won't find him. The enforcer raised his pistol. Last chance. Where is he? Carson didn't blink. Shoot me. Then search the whole building. Tear it apart. You still won't find him. And when Border Patrol shows up, because someone already called them, you'll be standing over a dead nurse with a smoking gun. Good luck explaining that. The enforcer hesitated. Carson saw it. The flicker of doubt. The calculation. He was weighing the cost. Then one of his men spoke up. Boss. She's stalling. Let's just burn the place and go. The enforcer nodded slowly. Yeah, you're right. He looked at Carson. Get out. Now. Before I change my mind. Carson shook her head. I'm not leaving. Then you're an idiot. Probably. The enforcer stared at her. Then he lowered his gun and turned to his men. Torch it. Everything. Two of the enforcers pulled out gasoline cans from the SUVs. They started pouring it along the walls, the furniture, the floor. The smell was overwhelming, sharp, chemical, suffocating. Carson watched. Her heart rate didn't change. Her breathing stayed even. She was counting steps, calculating distances, waiting. One of the enforcers walked past her, gas can in hand, heading toward the back hallway. Carson moved. She grabbed his wrist, twisted it down and back, and drove her knee into his ribs. He dropped the can, gasping. She swept his legs, dropped him to the floor, and kicked the gun out of his hand. The whole sequence took 3 seconds. The other enforcers froze. Carson straightened, breathing steady, and looked at the lead enforcer. You're not burning this clinic, she said. The enforcer's eyes narrowed. Who the fuck are you? Carson didn't answer. She just stood there, calm, hands loose at her sides, waiting. The lead enforcer raised his pistol. I'm going to kill you. You can try. He fired. Carson moved, dropped low, rolled left, came up behind the intake desk. The bullet punched through the wall behind where she'd been standing. She didn't have a weapon, didn't need one yet. She just needed to control the space. The enforcers spread out, trying to flank her. Carson tracked them all. Positions, angles, threat priority. She grabbed a metal tray from the desk and hurled it at the nearest enforcer. It hit him in the face. He stumbled back, cursing. Another enforcer rushed her. Carson sidestepped, used his momentum against him, and drove him into the wall. He crumpled. The lead enforcer was shouting now, furious, firing wild shots that tore through furniture and shattered windows. Carson stayed low, moving between cover, forcing them to chase her, to waste ammunition, to lose formation. She wasn't trying to win. She was trying to survive long enough for help to arrive. One of the enforcers circled behind her. She heard his boots, turned, and caught his rifle barrel as he swung it toward her. She twisted it out of his hands, reversed it, and slammed the stock into his jaw. He went down hard. Now she had a weapon. The lead enforcer saw it. His face went pale. Carson racked the rifle, checked the chamber, and raised it to her shoulder. Her stance was perfect. Her breathing was controlled. She looked like she'd done this 1,000 times. Because she had. Leave, she said quietly, or I start shooting. The lead enforcer stared at her. Then he smiled. You won't. You're a nurse. I was, Carson said. Before what? She didn't answer. She just adjusted her grip on the rifle and waited. The enforcer's smile faded. He looked at his men, 3 down, the rest hesitating, uncertain. Then he looked back at Carson, and he saw it. The coldness in her eyes, the certainty, the readiness. She wasn't bluffing. Fall back, he said. We'll handle this another way. The enforcers retreated, dragging their wounded with them. They climbed into the SUVs and drove off, tires kicking up gravel. Carson lowered the rifle. She stood there for a long moment, breathing slowly, her hands shaking just slightly. Then she set the rifle down and walked to the back of the clinic. Dr. Alvarez was standing in the hallway, staring at her. Who are you? She whispered. Carson didn't answer. She just walked past her, unlocked the storage room, and checked on the patients. They were safe. Scared but safe. Maria came out, pale and shaking. Are they gone? For now, Carson said. They're coming back, aren't they? Carson nodded. Probably tonight. Maria's voice cracked. What do we do? Carson looked at her, then at Dr. Alvarez, then at the patients huddled in the back rooms, terrified and helpless. She didn't want this. She'd spent 2 years trying to escape this, trying to be someone else. But they needed her, and she couldn't walk away. We hold the line, Carson said. The deputy came back just after sunset. Carson was in the supply room, cataloging what they had: bandages, sutures, saline, trauma kits. Not much, certainly not enough if things went bad. She heard the knock at the front door, the voice calling out, It's Deputy Reeves. Open up. Dr. Alvarez let him in. He walked through the clinic, eyes sweeping the damage, bullet holes in the walls, shattered glass, the smell of gasoline still hanging in the air. He found Carson in the back. I heard what happened, he said. Carson didn't look up. Then you know they're coming back. Yeah. He paused. Border patrols on their way. Should be here in 30 minutes. That's not fast enough, I know. He watched her for a moment. I also know who you are. Carson stopped. She set down the gauze she was holding and turned to face him. I recognize the way you moved, Reeves said, when you stitched me up. And again today. I asked around, made some calls. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket, a printed military record, heavily redacted. Captain Eliza Carson, 75th Ranger Regiment. 3 deployments: Iraq, Afghanistan. Honorable discharge 2 years ago. Carson stared at the paper, then at him. That's not who I am anymore, she said quietly. Maybe not, Reeves said, but it's who you were, and it's who you're going to have to be again. Because if the cartel comes back before Border Patrol gets here, we're all dead. Carson looked away. I left that life for a reason. What reason? She was silent for a long time. Then she spoke, her voice flat. Hollow, we were tasked with clearing a compound outside Kandahar. High-value target. Intel said minimal resistance. We went in fast, breached the doors, cleared the rooms. She paused. There were civilians inside. Women. Children. The target used them as shields. My CO gave the order to push through. We did. Reeves didn't interrupt. I killed 3 combatants that night, Carson continued, but a child got caught in the crossfire. A girl, maybe 8 years old. She wasn't holding a weapon. She wasn't a threat. She was just scared. And I didn't see her until it was too late. Her hands were shaking now. She pressed them flat against the table. I left the Rangers 6 months later, she said. Honorable discharge. Medical transition. I thought if I saved enough people, maybe I could balance it out. Maybe I could be someone different. She looked at Reeves. But it doesn't work that way. You can't undo what you've done. You just carry it. Reeves was quiet. Then he said, the people here, they're not combatants. They're not targets. They're patients. Innocent people. And if you don't help them, they're going to die. I know. So, what are you going to do? Carson closed her eyes. She'd been running from this moment for 2 years. Running from the weight, the guilt, the knowledge that she was good at violence and terrible at forgetting it. But Reeves was right. The people in this clinic didn't deserve to die because she was afraid of who she used to be. She opened her eyes. "I'm going to hold the line," she said. The cartel came back at dusk. 6 vehicles this time, maybe 20 men. They parked outside the clinic in a loose perimeter, engines running, headlights cutting through the dark. Carson had prepared. She'd moved all the patients into the reinforced back rooms and locked the doors. She'd positioned Reeves by the rear exit with a shotgun. She'd told Dr. Alvarez to stay with the patients and not come out, no matter what she heard. Alvarez had grabbed her arm. "Don't do this. Let them take the building. We'll rebuild." Carson shook her head. "They're not here for the building. They're here to send a message. If we let them win, they'll keep coming. Other clinics. Other people. That's not your responsibility. Maybe not," Carson said. "But it's the right thing to do." She walked to the front entrance and stepped outside. The lead enforcer was standing by the nearest SUV, arms crossed, flanked by his men. He saw Carson and smiled. "You should have left," he called. "So should you," Carson said. The enforcer laughed. "You've got balls. I respect that. But this ends tonight." Agreed. The enforcer's smile faded. "Last chance. Walk away." Carson shook her head. "No." The enforcer nodded to his men. They raised their rifles. Carson didn't move. She just stood there, hands at her sides, waiting. Then she heard it, the distant thrum of helicopter rotors. The enforcers heard it too. They looked up, squinting into the dark sky. Border Patrol. 2 helicopters, coming in fast, searchlights cutting through the night. The lead enforcer's face twisted. "Shit! Move, now!" The enforcers scrambled for their vehicles. Engines roared, tires spun in the gravel. Within seconds they were gone, disappearing into the desert. The helicopters circled, spotlights sweeping the area. Then they landed in the lot. Agents poured out, weapons ready, securing the perimeter. One of them approached Carson. "You the one who called it in?" Carson nodded. "You okay?" "Yeah." The agent looked at the bullet-riddled clinic, then back at Carson. "You're lucky." "I know," Carson said. By morning, the clinic was swarming with federal agents. Border Patrol, DEA, FBI. They interviewed the staff, photographed the damage, collected evidence. The patients were relocated to a safer facility 20 miles north. The cartel members who'd been caught were already in custody. Dr. Alvarez gave her statement, then found Carson sitting outside on a bench, staring at the desert. "They want to talk to you," Alvarez said. Carson nodded. "I know. They're calling you a hero." Carson didn't respond. Alvarez sat down beside her. "Reeves told me who you were. What you did before? And I don't care. You saved lives. That's all that matters." Carson looked at her. "I didn't do it to be a hero. I know," Alvarez said. "But you are one anyway." Carson stood. "I need to go. What? Now?" "Yeah, but the FBI. They'll manage without me." Carson picked up her bag from beside the bench. It was already packed. Alvarez stared at her. "You're just leaving?" "That's what I do." Carson. "Wait." But Carson was already walking toward the road, away from the clinic, away from the lights and the noise and the recognition she didn't want. Reeves caught up with her at the edge of the lot. "Where are you going?" "West," Carson said. "That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting." Reeves smiled faintly. "You know, there's a clinic about 200 miles from here. They're always looking for volunteers." Carson stopped. She looked at him. "I didn't hear that from you," she said. "Didn't hear what?" Reeves said. Carson nodded once. Then she turned and kept walking, disappearing into the early morning light. 3 weeks later, Reeves got a call from a friend, another deputy, stationed near El Paso. "You know a nurse named Carson?" The friend asked. Reeves paused. "Why?" "She's volunteering at a clinic out here. Showed up a few days ago. Doesn't talk much, but she's good. Really good." The friend hesitated. "There was an incident last night. Armed robbery at the clinic. She handled it. No one got hurt. But the way she moved, man, it was like watching a ghost." Reeves smiled. "Yeah. That sounds like her. You want me to reach out? See if she needs anything?" "No," Reeves said. "Leave her alone. She doesn't want to be found." "You sure?" "Yeah," Reeves said. "I'm sure." He hung up and stared out the window at the desert. Somewhere out there, Carson was doing what she always did, saving lives, staying invisible, carrying a weight no one else could see. Some people didn't want the spotlight, didn't want the thanks. They just wanted to do the work and disappear into the next shift, the next town, the next quiet corner where no one knew their name. Carson was one of them. And that was enough.